All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brian Pichman. I am the Director of Strategic Innovation at the Evolve Project. And today what we're going to be talking about is tech gadget stuff from a conference called CES. So a little bit about my background and what I do. I primarily work with libraries and schools and educational providers where I get to experiment with next generation technology, get to play with all the latest and greatest. And one of the methods of me obtaining some of the coolest new tech that is out there is I attend a conference called the Consumer Electronics Show. And it's usually hosted in Vegas every single year, but due to COVID, it went to fully virtual this year. So I'll explain what CES is today, what it looked like when it was in person, and also what it looks like when it's virtual. And then we'll talk about some of the really cool things that I got to see or unveiled at CES this year, which was actually just over 30 days ago. And so it's some of this stuff you probably haven't seen before. I want to try to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have questions about anything, feel free to post a question. I have my screen open, so I like as much engagement as possible. But at the end of CES, I always like to joke and say, I'm like the cat in that meme where I need everything. And so I build partnerships with these startup companies so I can share what they're doing with educational facilities around the world. So what is CES? CES stands for the Consumer Electronics Show. In essence, the purpose of it is to unveil and showcase what new products are coming out, product announcements. So you'll have your name brand companies like Samsung, HP, Lenovo, showcasing all their brand new televisions or laptops, etc. And on the other side of the coin, there's also the product announcements from new startup companies saying, hey, we just built this really cool invention and we want to show it to you. And so this conference runs the first full week in January every single year. It is the largest event of its kind. So in 2020, when it was in person, there was 4,400 exhibits, which was spread across a 2.9 million square feet facility, or actually multiple facilities in Vegas. And over 170,000 industry professionals were there. And so if you think about it, that's like 50 football fields in terms of size. So massive, massive amount, and it's incredibly crowded. So obviously they had to move it to virtual this year. Surprisingly, the virtual conference didn't yield as many attendees as I would have thought. It had about half of the exhibitors, half of the industry professionals, but there's over 47 hours of documented conference programming that I will give you a link that you can actually watch some of the stuff that happened at virtual CES. So you can kind of be there in the moment like I was. So some of the stats for 2021's Consumer Electronics Show is on this slide here. So tons of data, tons of information, and lots of really cool interactivity. So you can reach out to some of these vendors and exhibitors that are there and ask them questions about their product, which is a really cool dynamic. Since it was virtual, it was a lot easier, I would say, to talk to people because you just send them a message and then you wait for someone to reply. Whereas when it's in person, it looks like this. And so to get a word in edgewise is quite a challenge. And so you usually have to stand in a long line and you waste your time at each booth as you wait for your turn to talk. And I'll show you what the virtual environment looked like in a bit. So in person, all these big name companies will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars making these elaborate interactive display booths with light-changing colors. They'll have famous artists be part of their booth or exhibit. And so it's quite a neat experience. If you've never done it, I would encourage you to sign up to attend. It is for industry professionals, but if you're a technology enthusiast, you can fill out the form and if they accept you, perfect. So again, some of these exhibits are they build multiple stories. So you can walk into an exhibit that's on 2 different floors. And then there's also the startup booths. So all the smaller companies that don't have that capital to make massive interactive exhibit spaces, you have something very similar that you would see to an everyday conference. But again, the idea of CES is a lot of excitement and hype over all the cool new tech that's coming out and all the cool new gadgets and gizmos that will change our lives. And I'm doing air quotes if you can see me. But yes, the goal is to change the way things are occurring, and you're going to see that change right then and there. And some booths are really cool because they'll show the history of all their products. So this is a Philips Universal Remote exhibit that showed how their remotes evolved over the years. You even have car manufacturers attending this conference, and it might sound strange. We're calling it a consumer electronics show, yet there's a car. The purpose of the car companies being there is showcasing the new tech that's inside of the vehicle, whether that's fully autonomous driving or heads-up displays. A lot of that new tech is unveiled at this conference. And just to give you a viewpoint of a size of some of the booths, this is Panasonic. So it extends quite large and fits a ton of people inside the space. So when we compare an in-person to a virtual event, the in-person obviously is a little bit more expensive because you pay per day anywhere from $150 to $250 a night for a hotel. Your plane will be anywhere from $200 to $400 if you're in the United States, and your food you're expected to probably pay around $100 a day. When I would go in person, I actually just take advantage of the free or inexpensive buffets that are scattered throughout Vegas. There's websites that tell you where to go and how to eat on cheap, and so that's what I follow. There's shuttles you can purchase. There's also free shuttles that you can use as well. The ticket to get in, it's free if you register early. And again, there's a free shuttle between the hotels and the venue, and you can also opt to do a taxi service as well. Things to bring. Obviously, you want to take a real nice camera. Using your cell phone probably won't do it justice with some of the really neat interactive pieces that are there. But also keep in mind when you're at this event, some of this stuff you're not allowed to take photos of. They'll have signs saying you can't take a picture because they have this whole PR press thing they want to release as well. And if you take photos, you can release it out before anyone else can see it. And they don't want that. They want to control the image. And so just keep that in mind. And then also a power brick for your cell phone because your phone drains like crazy fast. And then bring really good shoes because I wish I brought my slide from 2020 when I went to this conference. You will wear out the soles of your shoes. And then clothing wise, everyone dresses from Hawaiian t-shirts to full business suits. So it's up to you or whatever you're comfortable with. So when you're attending virtually, it was a way easier. It's still free if you're part of media or members of the Consumer Technology Association, which you have to pay several $1,000s to be part of. Otherwise, it's $149 for a ticket. It's not crazy expensive, and the connections that you can make from that is pretty astounding. And obviously, the things that you need a computer with a good internet connection. I only used my webcam once on their platform, but otherwise I set up like 45 some odd meetings with different exhibitors that were there, which we use Google Meet to say hi to each other. You need a quiet space, and I funnily spelled that wrong, and pen and paper to take notes for meetings and exhibitors. So why should you even attend? I always tell people it's the only way to experience new technology on the market or soon to be released technology on the market, which is important if you're a technology enthusiast, you're tracking to see how technology evolves, or you just want to be on the cusp of the new things that are coming out so you can keep an eye on it before Christmas. It also gives you a really unique chance to meet founders and creators of some of the newer pieces of technology. Granted, you're not going to be able to walk up to the CEO of Samsung or Apple or Microsoft and shake their hand, but for the smaller companies, you can. And like me, I really enjoy networking and meeting new people and seeing new things. And so this gives me my extrovert side of myself to say hi to people and learn what they're building and see what I can do to help. And so a really great way is to do beta testing for new products or showcasing new products. If you're an educational provider, it's a really great way to say, hey, I'd love to see if your tech will work for our students or our patrons or our users. And most people are like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Here, I'll give you my product for free so you can show it to the world. And at the same time, you might be able to find people that offer some sort of level of expertise, whether they're able to teach about robotics or programming. If you need a guest speaker for an event, a lot of those founders of these companies are all about marketing And so if you say, hey, could you present to my robotics club about robotics because you have a robotics company, most of them will jump at the bit because it gives them an opportunity to not only show their product, but share their passion of what they're doing. So a couple of really cool links that I want to share with you. If you go to CES B-roll, it's a website that has a lot of the keynotes and presentations, as well as what's called B-roll footage. So just if you had a newspaper article or a magazine you were writing, you can get content for it. But the important thing on that website is looking at the keynotes and presentations. You'll hear stuff from Microsoft and Samsung, what they think new technology is going to look like. And they put together some really cool interactive presentations. And since it was virtual, they were able to make that presentation sing, if you will. And you can get a lot of really cool data and insight about where are we heading as the world evolves, especially around COVID, which was a hot topic, obviously, for a lot of these companies. There was so many new companies that spawned at CES with the solve of, hey, how do we solve contact tracing? Or how do we monitor out what the health of different people are? And I'll show you a little bit of some of those companies today. So the virtual exhibit is slightly different. This is what the virtual world looks like for CES. And this was the one downside that I did not enjoy. So if you were choosing exhibitors, you saw what it looked like earlier, which let me flip over. This is what it used to look like as you were hunting for an exhibit to meet. Now you just have a logo and the company's name. So if you're scrolling through a list of 2,000 different exhibitors, it's quite painful to figure out what does these companies do. The only way to find out is you click on it and you wait for the page to load, and then you can see all the content about that company. So it was a little painstaking to go through the list of about 2,000 exhibitors, but I narrowed down my search to about 100, and of that 100, about 40 I really enjoyed working with. And I'll show you some of my favorite of that 40 pool. And that's just a screenshot of some of the exhibitors I worked with. When you attend sessions, this is your session panel. And yes, that's Ryan Seacrest. He usually has some involvement with CES, and he'll bring on famous music stars. I don't remember the one gal in purple, but then they had Billie Eilish as well, and talking about technology and how in this particular presentation, they were talking about how technology influenced the music industry for 2020. Especially with giving virtual, or there was a few artists that did virtual reality concerts. So you get a virtual headset and then you can participate in a conference from the concert in the safety of your own home. And so they were talking about how technology allowed them to continue to showcase their talent, but also be able to reach even a wider group of audiences, because not everyone can travel to a concert. But a lot of people can hop on a computer, go to YouTube and stream something live. So some of the top trends, and I'll show some of the products outside of those trends as well. The biggest was probably the use of artificial intelligence in more engaging ways. So when we think of artificial intelligence, one of the key components is that when people think about AI, they think of just answering questions. But AI is a lot more than that. AI is making a decision based on a list of requirements for the best outcome. And so people are talking about AI in terms of health, or AI for driving, or AI for just making our lives better, not necessarily answering questions like you think of Alexa or your Google Home, but more so of, hey, we have a problem to solve, help us solve it. We see a lot of robotics and automations. I'll show you some really cool robots today. And then obviously the conjunction of combining AI and robotics for health tracking, contact tracing, temperature scanning, all those things that we're talking about technology and using it for, for instance, for COVID, a lot of people were talking about that too. So I'm going to play a little video. I'm not sure how well it will stream. Let me lower the volume though. So this is just some of the tech that debuted. So like touchless screens, robots handing out safety gear, letting people into our homes in a more safe and secure way. This is a 100% visor where it can fog your face if need be. A lot of drones and how they're helping cleaning environments. How workspace has changed where people are working from home more often. So that's just a glimpse of some of the really neat tech that kind of spawned from CES. So first tech trend that we want to talk about is AI. And actually I should probably went to this website live. So with AI, a lot of it is more just about answering questions. There was a lot of companies using AI to measure and understand video and making a decision about how people are interacting on a video. And the link I have at the bottom, it's a really cool website where you can draw a cat and then an AI will fill in your cat. And granted, it could be really cool and also can be really scary. So check out the website when you have some free time. It's a really neat experiment showing what AI can do other than what most people assume AI is with answering questions. So here's an example of AI from a company called I'm Beside You. What it's doing, so let's say you're running a Zoom conference call and you wanted to measure and get a report back of how people interacted with you during your presentation. So what this AI will do is it measures everyone's face, if they're happy, neutral, disgusted, if they're afraid, surprised, or angry. And then at the end of it, it gives you this information about the people that attended. And it's a really cool piece of software. And the idea is that using facial expressions and having an AI read it, you can understand if your content was accepted well. Company that's doing something similar is Criff. And what they do is they have an AI that while you're interviewing someone, it can tell you if they're being honest with you, how they are interacting with your questions, if they're comfortable or not. And the backstory of this company was really neat. The lady that founded it used to be an FBI profiler. So she loaded up all the ways she would profile an individual while talking to them and built an AI around it. So now if you're interviewing someone, this AI can scan everything that you're doing and it can say, hey, I asked this person a question, they answered it confidently. Or I asked them a question, they were shifty and they didn't tell me the truth. So can I trust that person, whether that hiring them, interviewing them, working with them, whatever the solve might be. So I thought it was a really neat idea in terms of engagement using an AI to determine, are these interactions, honest? So shifting gears, a lot of new companies also spawned off new VR and AR based technology. So when we think of VR, it's fully immersive, interactive environments. And so there are a company like Virtual Italy, which allows you to view virtual Italian exhibits from Italy and walk around them to learn from them as if you're actually in Italy touring the area. They even have VR companies that spawned out for senior care. One such example was Rendever, and the idea, and this spawned from COVID, people are in nursing homes are getting cooped up. They want to go explore, but they necessarily can't because they're at risk. And so what this company does is it gives everyone a headset. It has an administrator with a tablet, and they all transport to the same location. If they all want to go walk across the beaches, they can do so. And they can see each other virtually across nursing homes across the world. They can see their kids or grandkids virtually in these environments and interacting with them as if they were actually there. And I thought it was really neat. For the gamers that have joined us today, check out TechSuit. They also won an innovation award. And what TechSuit is, it's what you would picture probably from someone playing the movie Gamer, if you've ever seen it. The idea with this is you're wearing a vest, and let's say if you were playing a shooting game and you got shot in the chest, that chest pocket would vibrate as if you actually got hit. And there's 40 different motors all over the vest that lets you interact as if you were in this fully immersive real life environment. And so we're getting closer and closer and closer to this VR simulation as if we can feel, taste and touch everything in that space. And so we're move closer and closer to that. In terms of education, there's a company called Orcam. They have two products, one called Read and one called My Eye. What Read does is it's a handheld device that you can scan across any printed surfaces or surface or digital screens, and it will read aloud what's on there. Orcam is slightly different. It's the idea of helping people that are visually impaired by reading out loud what's around them or communicating visuals to them. Think of it as like a seeing eye dog for a person. I thought it was a really smart invention. But right now they're focusing more on, you want to read a book, but you can't really see it very well. This product can do it for you. And then when we talk about evolutionary tech, there's a company called Mojo Lens, and they won the last Gadget Standing Award at CES. And so there's a big competition with all these new age gadgets and gizmos, and they all compete to win this prize. And Mojo won, and what they have is a contact lens that you can wear, and you get an AR heads-up display. So it can give you stats such as if you're working out, what your heart rate is, how far have you walked and traveled, what's the speed you're moving at, if you're working towards a distance or running towards something, what that distance is. You can do a whole bunch of really cool AR type stuff. So if you're at a restaurant and you wanted to understand what's in the menu, depending on how they built it, you can find out more information, do searches as if you were having a computer in front of your face, but you don't. It's all built into this contact lens. So shifting gears, when we talk about health, obviously that was a huge thing for the consumer electronic industry as a whole, because a lot of new companies were making products to help either combat the spread of COVID or understand it better. And so there's a lot of really neat, innovative masks. There's masks that you can have a display and you can put words and shapes over it, or you can have something that looks like this from a company called AirPop. It's a $150 mask, but what it can do is it tells you when you need to replace the filters, what your air quality is like, how safe are you, essentially. And so it's a really neat, high-end piece of tech, but it's taking a mask, something that we wouldn't think about wearing every single day, but making it into a digital accessory. There was a company called BioButton that released basically a device that helps monitor COVID. And it's a little thicker than a sticker, but they say it's as easy as putting a sticker somewhere. And it's about a quarter size, and you can put it on someone to monitor their heart rate, their temperature, and respiratory rate. And then it monitors all that to see if there's any deviations in those metrics. And then obviously some other digital trends or tech trends were distance learning, communication, and more, because we're changing the way we interact with people. So this is a company called Owl, and it's a 360-degree smart camera. So there's multiple people in the room. It could splice each of those individuals out as separate video feeds. So if you're doing a presentation together, it can follow you around or show your whiteboard and yourself and blend the two together in a really nice cohesive experience. And then obviously we have robotics. Samsung always seems to release new robots every year. Last year they had a care robot, a service robot, and like a medicine reminder robot. This year they went to a whole nother level. They have a dishwashing robot, so a robot that will do your dishes for you. They also have they called it like the dining server butler robot. So the butler robot can set a place setting for you, pour you wine, or get you the wine you require, and do all that for you through a robotic AI that learns and understands what you want and how you want it. And so for those that have dish duty tonight, you could recommend getting one of these robots to do the dishes for you so you don't have to. And on the right is a company called Misty. So Misty is a robot that you can purchase and learn how to program and do these really neat interactive pieces. You might have seen it in the intro video. People are using Misty as door greeters to take someone's temperature before they let them into the building. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot more of this, and some might call it invasive technology, where it's going to monitor what we do and how we do it and what our temperature is, and deny or refuse service based on that pieces of data. But it's going to be autonomous, done by robots. And then for younger kids, there's a company called Roby. They have an AI educator that learns from your kid as they play with the robot. And so the robot will give you harder and more challenging questions. There's a camera on there to detect your face. So if you have multiple kids, it knows the differences between them. And each will have their own set of activities, and you can push activities to them. But the idea is you teach them the STEM category of learning, so science, tech, engineering, and math, through stories, games, and songs. And then for those that like pets but don't want the fur, there's a company called Coda, and it's the world's first AI robotic dog. And so the dog can follow you around, it can mimic your moves. If you never checked out this robot, it's probably one of the most popularly advertised robotic dogs. But now they cleaned up the interface, and that's what it looks like. A lot less scary. The first version was haunting. So that's Coda. And for those that have real fur babies, and this is what they are more comfortable with, there's a company called PetCube. What PetCube does is it tosses treats out to your pet as such. And so there's like a built-in laser that can detect where your dog's mouth is, and it'll fire a treat into its mouth or toss a treat into its mouth. So you can interact with your pet even if you're not home. And so there's a whole bunch of really cool new tech. So the next couple sets of slides are the technology that's so far out there, it's kind of hard to believe that someone came up with it. This product line that I'm showing you here is a company called Luca, and it uses artificial intelligence and computer vision to provide educational experiences for teens and younger kids. And so it's very similar to Roby, maybe a little bit more cute, to give you this fun interaction to learn how to read and explore things. So, there's a company called WiseUp, and what they did was they took what your standard Zoom. So we were in a Zoom meeting, and she made her virtual background into an interactive virtual background, where she was able to pull in slides, PowerPoints, and presentations and logos into what you would think of as a newsroom, all from the comfort of her, green screen room. The next robot that I thought was kind of far out there was Care Clever. And this was the idea of overcoming social isolation. So it's a little robot that can interact with your grandparents and seniors, and give them the opportunities to do virtual explorations, do live activities together, and then also alert somebody if there's an emergency. So we're going to see a lot more robots, a lot more of this interaction as we kind of continue to go down the path of secluding ourselves potentially, but using robots to bring things back together. This is a shipping box that I thought was a really neat idea. And so what the shipping box allows you to do is you can put fragile items in there, and the tech inside will make sure the items don't get shifted or broken by automatically adjusting the packaging inside, so to protect the products as you ship, and a little digital tracking label as well that you can push out updates to. A neat little idea. So for those that want to do VR but are prone to motion sickness, a company called Scenic, their background was for people that had driving motion sickness. They made a headset that you can wear that gets rid of motion sickness. The first of its kind, the only one that exists. And so they challenged themselves to solve motion sickness through VR. And so this will clip into an HTC Vive or an HTC Pro, and allow you to do VR without the risk of motion sickness, or at least limiting the risk of motion sickness. And I thought it was a really smart idea because a lot of people don't want to do VR because of that motion sickness fear. And this is Beer Maker. And so for those that like to make beer, this is a smart home appliance that allows you to do the brewing and the fermentation, and allowing you to build your own brews. And it gives you, it'll make, I think, a case of beer, so 12 pack every time, and you're allowed to customize and create the recipes as you go. I thought it was a really neat idea for those that want a new hobby as they're still stuck inside. For those that don't want to be stuck inside, there's a company called Roam Robotics. And what they've done, and this is the idea of biotech, so using technology to augment human movement or interactions. So these clip-on arms or legs to help you walk, move, reach, lift up heavier objects. The initial goal is to help people that have physical disabilities that won't allow them to move. Like, you bend over to pick up something and your back always hurts. their vision is, hey, we can prevent that from happening by motorizing some of your movements. So that's Realm Robotics. When we talk about fun little interactive toys, this is called Wow Cube. What Wow Cube is, it's like almost like a Tetris ball, except there's different games and different activities that you can turn, splice, and play, and do this really neat version of interactive play through almost like a Rubik's Cube. Someone comments like exoskeletons on this slide. Yes, exactly. For those that want a more immersive experience, there's a company called Wooblu that announced their product, which is like an all-in-one smart device called Smash. And what it allows you to do, it uses AI and gesture recognition, so moving your hands, to play movies, play games, and do fun little interactive activities. And the idea is making your smart home even smarter by having this device to project videos or play games with you. So I thought that was a really neat product. Shifting gears just slightly, this is a company called Eakin. One of the other tech trends that people sometimes talk about, but it's usually a little scary, is the idea of a smart city or a smart community. And so Eakin is taking the idea of a smart city and building this pole with modular adapters that can give traffic analysis, if there's, do surveillance with audio and video recognition, Wi-Fi hotspots, if there's traffic, using this as a traffic flow meter to let you know if you should go this way or that way. Also air modules to let you know how much carbon monoxide, ammonia, or other humidity temperature levels that are around. But then it collects all this data and gives it to administrators of the city, if you will, to allow them to know what we should do or what decisions we should make in terms of, do we increase lane usage? Do we tell people to route traffic a different way? And so that's the concept of a smart city in a pole. So let's see if this works. So we're going to do a little interaction here. If you have your smartphone nearby, I want you to pick it up and go to this website, swiftpolling.com. And it's going to ask you to type in a code. And the code is 21481. So if you go to that now, and I'll do it with you all. So again, the website is swiftpolling.com. And then it'll ask you for a code, and that code is 21481. So when you join, it'll ask you, what new tech trend are you excited for? And you simply have to type in your answer in the box. And when you hit submit, it'll then appear on the slide. So there's 47 of you all here, so we should see 47 answers, hopefully. Someone put accessibility devices. Someone put Mojo Lens. Keep them coming. And then if people select the same answer, it'll make it bigger. So a lot of people are saying AI, robotics, gadgets in general, VR. Another person voted for Mojo Lens. So a lot of really neat new tech is on the horizon, and it'll be an experience playing. I always tell people, new technology, while it could be scary, it's always fun to at least experiment and learn from it. There's a lot of new ideas that fail after CES because someone had a great idea, everyone jumped the bandwagon, but they couldn't figure out how to fit it. It usually resurfaces in a year or two as something brand new, but with more of a designated purpose. So thanks. We have one more of these, so feel free to keep them coming. We'll go to the next slide. So at-home technology. So what kind of tools did I see at CES that we can bring home and use for our home environments? The first I want to talk about is PhaseDock. What PhaseDock is, it's if you had Raspberry Pis, breadboards, LCD screens, and you wanted a place to build your inventions and your ideas, FaceBox is a combination of a tackle box and a workbench to put all your ideas together, safely store them, or display them as you complete them. And so that's what FaceDoc is. I think it's a really great product to store our tech gadgets, if that's what we're into, and then display it because they will clip into those, it's like a pegboard almost, but for your robotics kits. Probably one of my favorites that I got to play with, and I actually have one now. It's called Tony's Box. What Tony Box is, and this is this little red cube that has characters that you can put on top. And so if you had Buzz Lightyear, for instance, and you put Buzz Lightyear on top of the box, it will read you Toy Story. Or if you had the Cars from Cars and you put him on the box, it will then play the Cars theme song. And it's this idea of using little characters to do interactive stories without having a screen in front of you. And you tilt the box to fast forward it, or you slap the box to skip to the next chapter or to the next song. But it's this really neat, immersive, without using a screen to do storytelling and interactivity. If you like robotics, check out PyTop. And so what PyTop is, it combines AI and machine learning and Internet of Things all in one simple little box. What I really liked about PyTop is if you wanted to co-code something or code a project together as a group, you can invite people through a Teams chat, and they can send code to the robot as a group through this Teams conversation. And so one person would have the robot, you have multiple engineers working on it, and then you can teach the robot new exciting skills. You can have people helping debug the issues. So it's a fun little way to bring some of that interactivity together. Play Shifu. This company makes a whole bunch of AR-based games with your iPad. Their newest product is called Tacto. And what Tacto is, it's a game that has, or STEM-based games. And so the one that I'm showing here is called Laser. The idea is you're using prisms and angles and mirrors to diffract light into different colors, or avoiding obstacles in order to make the beams deflect the right way. But they have games like chess and other STEM-based programming games even from Play Shifu, so check them out. Finch 2.0, while not at CES, I wanted to include because they just announced their new product as well. So Finch is a robotic bird that you can teach how to program through your iPad or through your computer through dragging and dropping commands. And the little guy can be controlled to avoid obstacles, trace mazes, go through a maze, etc. So it's a fun little interaction piece. And the last really neat at-home piece of technology is a company called Gridley Games. And they make a whole set of interactive science kits that you can incorporate into your everyday learning. So it gives you activities and projects to work on to learn from and explore from. And so those are some of the top activities or tech that I saw at CES to bring things together. Let's go back to this slide, see what else we have. So new tech, seems like most people are excited about the Mojo Lens, VR, and robotics. And so, yeah, I mean, that was essentially some of the top tech trends at CES that I got to kind of play and experiment. And Mojo Lens is essentially AR, so it dives into your VR virtual reality components. So we have one more activity to do together, and then I will set you free for the evening. If you're still on the website, it should have refreshed for you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to vote on which at-home focused tech gadget are you most excited for. And I put in Tony's Box, PyTop, Play Shifu, and Finch. So feel free to vote away on your tech. So if you don't see anything on the website yet, just refresh it on your browser. You've already authenticated. And as people vote, I will actually go fetch my Tony's Box so I can show it to you. So far, it looks like a lot of people like the Raspberry Pi based programming game. So we'll let people to continue to vote. I will stop my, I'll keep the screen share going. No, I'll stop it. All right, so let me turn on my webcam. Let me end the show. All right, so hopefully you can see me. So this is the Tony's box. Like I was saying, like you just put a character on this little box and it instantly starts playing. And I smack it,
Lightning McQueen
and
was
it can tell me a
fast,
story.
but sometimes it takes more than just speed to win a race.
I'm not sure if you can hear it, but hopefully you can.
To find out if McQueen has what it takes to become a real champion, buckle your seat.
What I also thought was really neat, so if you had family members around the world and you wanted to send them one of these, but also read a story to them, this is called the Creative Tony, and you're able to record using an app a story. So this is me recording a story and sharing it.
Hi, this is Brian, and I'm about to read you a story.
I don't really read you a story, but
Creative Tony. This is a story of me exploring.
it's a fascinating story. So that's the Tony's box, and I thought it was a really neat interactive idea, and it's a safe little, like it's squishy, you can throw it, and it's quite durable. And what's nice, if you're circulating it, you can wipe it down essentially. So that is all the fun tech trends. I will turn my camera off so I don't haunt you, and I'll put the PowerPoint back on. All right, so it looks like our winners for the most at-home tech gadget that people are most excited for is the Pi Top, which I don't have yet, so I can't show it to you, but those are our results, so that's pretty exciting. Oops. And that was our results for the tech trends. So I will end my show. So if are there any questions or anything that people do have questions about, want to see more of, talk more about, we have 18 more minutes left. Someone has a question on what is the copyright for using the B-roll from CES for education purposes. On their website, it tells you what the copyright rules are. I believe that as long as you accredit where you got it from, you can repurpose it. I've played videos before from CES from their B-roll website without issues for training or presentation purposes without problem. And actually, forgot to throw that. Here's my contact info. I will type it in live. Email. If you have questions, if you're watching the recording, that's my email. Or if you would like to see what I tweet about, which sometimes is exciting and sometimes it's not, that is my Twitter. Oops, now you can see it. So there's my contact info. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out. And it was really great talking with all of you. Let me see if there's any more questions. Well, wonderful. Thanks for attending Two Spaces webinar today. Hopefully you were able to experience or at least see some of the latest and greatest tech that's on the horizon. And again, if you do have questions, whether you're watching the recording, even years from now, feel free to reach out. Love to hear what you think.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And thank you, Brian, for hosting tonight.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good night, guys.